Howdys and salutations, y'all. Sorry about the wait. Once again, we're going to be playing a little fast and loose with the stream timing today. We're still dealing with paint fumes and all that jazz, but I think we're on for another day of normalcy. And hopefully I'll stay awake for it, because I make no promises. It has been an out-of-sorts kind of day. I've got about 15 minutes of actual, stream content planned as far as, what I want to do. Well, I roughly know the rest, too, but, I've actually planned the line work. I haven't planned the other stuff. So, we'll see. Oh, I feel like the Spotify might be just a hair too loud. And I know that I'm probably a little too quiet still. Sorry about that. I'm still working on the stream setup. Sorry, we'll get audio sorted here in a little bit. I'd switched to the old headphones. I need to do some more audio comparisons. I may switch to the old headphones again at some point. What I'd really like to do, because as much as having an open mic is nice, and theoretically better sound quality, in practice it's I just don't have the setup for a non-echoey workspace, and practically it's not gonna happen for the foreseeable short-term future. I wouldn't expect it to be an opportunity within the next year, probably. So, in lieu of that, I'm researching better headsets that might have improved audio quality, but not necessarily require the full setup of a streaming area. Because unfortunately, I just don't have the space. I stinking work from home, stream from home, sleep at home. There's not a lot of rooms. And so there's not a lot of room. But we make do. I just realized that I left the lights in my my computer on a solo jazz stinking color scheme. Which, to be fair, I love, but is very silly. Okay, but as for what we're actually doing on stream, I've got probably 15 more minutes of line work, which we knew would happen. I left some notes at the end of stream last time. Well, after stream last time. Because, truth be told, I'm not sure I want to go for the Chad face for Olivine. Funny though it may be. And I've been doing some style studies and stuff to hopefully, I mean, not a ton. It's only been 24 hours, and, job and sleep and other things have eaten up most of that. But for the openings we have, I've done a little sketching, so hopefully we'll be able to make some improvements there that are a little better. More noticeably, though, well, not more noticeably, but in addition, let's see, we've got the longer spear. I want to adjust this so it's not a bad tangent. The drape of this doesn't quite match the pose. I want to tweak it. And the shield's a little too small, so I want to tweak that too. None of that's crazy. I think we're going to spend maybe 15 more minutes on that. We're currently 2 hours, 15 minutes into it. So we've just passed the halfway mark, and I'm confident we're doing okay on time. Now, the caveat to that, and this probably wouldn't be on the time, I think we need to rethink our color scheme a little bit, because I've been toying with it, and it just doesn't quite work. The two greens are too close, the beige and the gray don't contrast each other well, and the white is kind of too blue. Let's look at our thumbnail from last time. It's not bad, but mainly the greens. I think, well, the greens and the gray aren't great. The beige is actually pretty good. We didn't really use much of the white on it. I'm not even sure the white really counts as part of the palette, truth be told, with what we've been doing. But yeah. It could just use a little bit of tweaking. But especially the greens. I think, and honestly, it's like a really muted gold. Which isn't the worst, but it's kind of that where on its own it looks more mustardy. And I don't love that. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not actually sure it looks all that mustardy. Mustard is a much bolder yellow than things that get called mustard yellow, you know? I don't know if it's based on older mustards or different mustards or, the seed or something, but the stuff labeled mustard yellow is always a lot less saturated than the yellow of mustard, you know? Okay. Okay, but before we mess with that too much, you can see we've already got the timer queued up for that 15 minutes for just a couple of sketch improvements. So I'm not going to hold off on that. Let's just think and do it. I know I usually ramble a lot at the start of these streams. Today will probably not be any different from that normally. I mean, we're already stinking 10 minutes in, theoretically. But yeah, we can make some tweaks, and this will put our Neo sketch at a full hour. And given that it's probably going to end up being our inking, what with the quality of the pen and stuff, or like, I think it's going to be fine. Is this the same gray we used? No, because we used 3D, 3D, 3D. Which is actually less dark, interestingly enough. Let's see. Easy fixes. The easiest fix is the stinking shield. A Neo sketch, good. I've lost part of the interior there. That's fine. That almost looks like it was intended that way. I got the vector eraser a little big there. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything exciting to update y'all on. But they're really... I don't know. It's not been a low-key day, but it's been an out-of-sorts kind of day, so I don't really have much new. Things just done been happening. You know. As they're wont to do. Let's see. Can do some quality cleanup here at least. And we can even... we can apply a little less. On that. Again, I'm not too worried about like the actual design quality of the shield. It's not really the focal point. I'm glad I didn't waste a ton of time prepping a crest though, because while we're gonna need one at some point, it's not exactly visible on this now, is it? Let's see. I want to make it clear that that's not the arm. I think we're gonna have to reselect and be very selective this time and not leave out sections. Zoop. And just move the whole thing up, sort of be against that. Maybe even obscuring the end of it. There we go. That will hopefully remove some of the fused into the arm look and allow for more of a actually just holding it look. We'll see. Had a little something to hint at it. Okay, there's one. 11 minutes. This one's less important, but it feels like this really ought to be more like over here, even though it's sort of meant to underlap the other one. We've still got the chainmail that will be visible in the gap. Which, by the way, I noticed last time we didn't fully continue the chainmail once we removed this along. So we will just have to do that. Because chainmail will be important, you know? Which direction were the curves on this? They were like along it, right? Let's remove these background lines first. It's fun. It's amazing how much I zone those out to the point where I don't even notice that they're there, and then I'm like, oh wait, crud. Nope, that's the racer mode still. Cool. Zoop, 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 zoop. Yeah, we can clear out just a few more stray lines. And of course this one too. Zoop, zoop. Alright, we'll avoid too much parallel with the wrinkles. That's fine. Cool, I think that fits the motion better. I also feel like this ought to continue lower. No, that doesn't really make sense with the shape of it. What there could be, though, would be like another panel going off the back. And that would make some amount of sense. That could be the gold coming back in. Cool. Chainmail probably ought to be continuous underneath all that, though. Keep drawing lines and then immediately accidentally erasing them. It already just agreed where the action line was, and it was higher than this, so that'll be our curve. And this little section of chainmail just keeps getting bigger. There we go. Now we zoomed out. That looks a little bit like swim trunks, but with the pants coloring, it'll be fine. That's better. Curvature adds clarity, but makes no sense. Okay, I don't want to waste too much time on that when the whole reason we're doing this, truthfully, is the face. And there's a few small tweaks I think we can do to make the face a lot better. First, let's chill out on the brow ridge a little bit. Second, we'll bring the nose forward a bit so that the whole mouth line is in fact more forward. I'm going to do a simpler mouth too. I still haven't quite figured out the right amount of detail for this style. The eye has accidentally ended up with just like stinking a ton of detail, which is not the worst. Now we've got this sort of built in. We can just have the let's see, we can make a slightly smaller nose. I mean, I don't have a lot of opinion on nose size other than just very curved. I can do a confident smirk. And then like a little bit more. I'll be honest, most of the stuff I was doing style studies from was the She-Ra 2018 show, because as I was talking about last time, inspired a lot of my stuff, like just my concept of style, but also it has a similar level of detail, so stuff it does well is stuff that or stuff that works for it is stuff that can work for me too. Don't like that. Couple issues with it, but we got time to fix them. What is that red bar under the timer? Very ominous. I'm not going to worry about it, though. Here we go. We want this popping out further. Okay, what was the rule of thumb? Top lip slightly more out than bottom, but not like crazy amounts. I'm okay with that. Now that expression is obviously like a stinking gremlin, so let's maybe not do that. Oh, jeepers. I'm not thinking relative to the angle of the face. Jeepers. What am I doing wrong with this lip? Because it's clearly the lip that's this stinking issue here. This top lip does not look right. Is it that it's way too long? I think it's that it's way too long. That's stinking... I'm gonna fight my experience limits on so many things. No. Ugh. Nope, not loving that. Oh my word. There's the nose, there's the top of the face. We need the whole nose thing to be happening even further out. That line should be there and this should meet it. No, it's definitely not that. No. Ugh. It shouldn't really go past this. I mean, I realize the eye's probably still, like, off. Probably more so now. Ugh. Horizontal distance. Be helpful if I could, like, see the whole face, maybe. I shouldn't have done this with an obscured face. I knew that would come back to haunt me. So that looks like they're making a funny face. As does that. Straight down. No. 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 Is it this? Oh, dagnabbit. Why? Why can I not get this right? I feel like I'm making every silly expression in the book and not a serious one at all. That's too far back. That's the weakest chinned person. Which isn't a bad thing, it's just... Come on, Olivine, work with me here. I mean, I'll admit it doesn't look like a Chad, but it just still doesn't look right at all. Everything I do looks like they've got pursed lips. And they're like making a funny face with it. And I can't figure out how to fix that. Oh good, these two are dependent on each other. Cool. Ugh, why can I not do this? Does that look halfway? I mean, it looks like a face. Doesn't really look like Olivine in my mind, but you know. Let's get like a little bit of important dark where it matters. I mean, that still looks off, but it looks a lot less off. The main off is the eye is so much more detailed than everything else, I feel. He's at least recognizable to some extent. Oh good, we got 23 seconds left. Guess that ominous red bar was remaining time. Makes sense, I suppose. Bad tangent. Okay. Well, I do think it's a notable improvement, but I also still think there's plenty of room to improve further. That said, I don't think we're going to have time for that on this run. 0.25. I do still think that's better than where we were, honest to goodness. Nose design could still use improvements, but what you gonna do? Okay, what next? What next? Okay, we've been messing with line work on this one so long. I don't want to tweak it further into oblivion, because that's a long bad habit we have. So, whoops. Let's see if we can't fix our background. I don't know what happened there. Put away some of the old sketches, and just keep moving forward. Even if it ain't perfect, it's workable. We're also going to hide the notes. We don't need those right now. Okay, so keeping forward on our time trials here. What's next, you might be asking? Well, if you've done these before, then you know we're probably going to be doing our values. In this case being grayscale, which we're still doing on one layer. If we do a bigger project, we won't do this. But for these quick runs, it's fine. So, values, just a recap. When we talk about color, there's a few ways to talk about color. There's RGB, which is basically how much red, green, and blue you mix into it. But one of the other really common ones, especially for digital art, is hue value saturation, or hue saturation value, also known as HSV, if you see that. You'll probably run into a lot. And then there's hex codes, which are... Hex codes are the easiest one to type from one thing to the other, but, like, they don't tell you all that much about the color. I mean, you can read them, but it's not... The point, hue saturation value actually tells you a lot about what you're looking at. Because it's basically, instead of just red, green, blue, which can be a little difficult to mind mix in your head, especially if you're dealing with various browns, or, like, odd grays, hue saturation value gives you a pretty good idea of what your end result is going to be. Because it's just the three parts combined. And the best way to think about it is value is basically, it's not exactly lightness to darkness, but it's mostly like how much black to all the way to how much white you mix into it, underlying it. So, for example, just to do a little demo here, let's, oh, jeepers, I'm in the wrong field. Okay, here we go. Let's just grab this one. This is a pretty dark black. That's fine, we're on our millipen. That's a dark black. We'll get something more in the middle. That's what this axis is dealing. We're on the HSV view, by the way. So that's what this one is. We'll get something more in a middle gray. And then our background's already white. Or pretty white. I don't know if it's probably full white. Yeah. Well, it's there. So that's basically your underlying blacks into grays into white, what's underneath it. Hue is probably the thing you'll think of as color, or certainly what I think of as color normal day to day. It's when we're talking about red, green, blue, yellow, teal, chartreuse, puce, whatever. That's stinking hue, and that's what this slider over here is. So we've got our black to white. You can see what we've selected here, black to white. We've got our hue slider, so we've got the reds, magentas, blues, lighter blue cyans, into greens, yellows, oranges, reds, the whole rainbow. And basically, what saturation is, let's just go to the middle because it's the easiest to demo here, is how much of the hue you're actually going to see. So if you have just like a very low saturation, you can see that this is shifting a little bit. It shows a little bit of, well, let's do a bold color. We'll get our blue here. So this right now, there's no blue. It's just the gray. We move over here. There's like a little bit you can see, but it's still like pretty gray. I mean, even in this whole space, you would probably call that gray. You might even call this a gray, even though, yeah, it depends on the context. And then as we keep going, we've got more and more and more of that actual blue hue until it's just aggressively blue. But even then, it's still affected by how much darker light is under it. So we've got all the way down into the blacks and all the way up into the super bright below it. In practical terms, the way I like to think of this is if you just printed out like a sheet of paper with like black squares and then a gradient of gray squares all the way to white and like just tape it on your wall, that's your value. And then you pick your hue with, just pick some colored saran wrap. So instead of the full clear stuff, they used to have like the fun colored ones. You can like tape it over a flashlight or whatever. So, you know, you pick a little red saran wrap. That red is your hue. The saturation is how many layers of saran wrap you put over the black to white on your wall. If you don't put many layers at all, it still looks mostly black or white. The black's pretty dominant, the white's pretty dominant still. If you put a lot of layers, then it eventually, you know, you can't even see the black and white under it. Like, maybe a little bit, but it's still mostly just the hue. It's a silly analogy, but it makes sense in my head, at least. And for the record, the thing down here is that with black, because it's already, at least as far as pigment is concerned, it's already got so, like, it's basically maxed out already. So, like, even if you put a ton of layers on saran wrap on it, it's still just solid black underneath. There's not more light getting through or less light or certain colors of light, certain hues. Whereas the white can be pretty heavily affected pretty quickly. Like, even just a few layers, and you're like, oh, okay, that's already like a lavender. So I've come around to HSV. However, I especially like it when drawing because it lets you sort out two separate problems if you split it up. Because when you're doing RGB, you're basically just like, well, I kind of need like a darkish red, but does that, when you're looking at your color wheel, does darkish red mean you need to go into these deeper reds over here as opposed to like a lighter one here? Or does it mean you need like more value, or do you just need more saturation? Like, what's actually dark red? And it can get really fuzzy. So, when you're doing a drawing and you're trying to figure out shadows and lighting and which areas need to be bold and catch your eye and which areas need to be subtle and not, sometimes it helps to just figure out the value first. Don't worry so much about the hues, you can always add them on later, but if you figure out the values right at the beginning, it gives you a lot more control. It's sort of like in a scientific experiment, you can control more variables. If you're trying to do all of the whole color stuff at once, the red, green, blue, the all hue, saturation, and value at once, it's really messy, and you're messing with sliders, and you're like, wow, it's really hard to tell what's actually affecting this and what isn't. But with this, you can just, like, isolate the other variables. Hue and saturation, they're the same, we're not messing with them, we're just messing with value for now. And I feel like it makes it a lot easier to actually plan things out a little bit. In these cases, it's mostly just sorting out shadows and such, but with a proper drawing like the Melania we did, is that even still in my recent? Sure, yeah. So with this one, it let us figure out important areas, because, and we take away the hue and saturation and we just see the values. Basically, value determines an awful lot about where your eye goes. Certainly hue and saturation do too, but value has a lot, it's overlooked, at least if you're like me and you're just beginning and you don't have art experience, it's easy to overlook value. But this one, which again, we did from an image, so it's not like this was fully original, but the direction of motion of this image, the character's looking up, we obviously want the focus to be this motion forward. In the Elden Ring trailer, you want that because you're curious who she is, but also what enemy she's moving towards. And they use the value to define that. Because we've got these very bright spots that are once again angled in the same direction as the motion, and then we have this very bright one that's also angling forward, and then there's a lot of detail in here, but it's not really the focus, so it's all, even if it's slightly different colors, it's all basically the same value. Like, it's just kind of this, not a lot of contrast. Up here in the helmet, there's a lot of contrast. We've got super dark right up next to super bright, because that's where you want the focus to be drawn. Down here with all this detail, same deal. Super dark right next to super bright. That contrast draws your eye. This is all dark next to dark, dark next to dark, dark next to somewhat lighter, but still not crazy bright. And so it kind of blurs together, which is the point, because you don't need to be worried about random folds of the cloak. You want to be focused on this distinctive headpiece and also the direction of motion. And so once you add all the hues and saturations on it, it's a lot harder to tell, but your eye is still drawn to these pieces. And it's not just because they're slightly lighter in color or the gold, it's because of the value and the intentional value contrast. Whereas this, even though there's different colors going on, it still kind of blurs together. It's not where your eye goes first. And that's well done on their part with the trailer, and that's what we tried to really focus on with that illustration. And in the shorter ones, I'll try to focus on it a little bit as far as drawing the eye is concerned. but it's not as big. You know, again, we're mainly trying to make sure that shadows and such are in a decent way. So with that, I think it's about time, now that we've recapped values a little bit, why don't we... Oops. Let's reset our timer. Let's set it to be a full hour. Because frankly, once the value's done, the color is actually pretty easy. Pro tip. And I don't see why we can't just go ahead and kick this off. So, step 1 is erasing all this nonsense. Good demo materials, not so useful over here. And I need to make sure I get that clear white one too. Just in, yeah, I thought so. Okay. Zoop. Okay. Now we're on the value layer. We'll go back to this. I'm going to go back to our Melania 5 value set. It's not the perfect 5 value, and if it's technically 6 because we were messing with one. And honestly, if I was really planning ahead, we would plan out values that were specific to what we want this character to look like. Are we looking for a lot of high contrast? Are we going to have a lot of soft light areas with a few deep shadows, or vice versa? And we would have sort of picked our grays. But as it is, we'll start with this. And we will also start with the fill tool, because it's easy to clean up edges, but the fill tool lets us do a very quick and lazy get an idea of where we want the values. So, for example, I'm going to go back to this one because it's a fairly neutral tone, so we can not have to worry about stuff too much. I want a very, very light value on these. I want these to look bold and paladin-like. Whoops. And so I want that to be light. I want the stuff around them to contrast that and actually be maybe not fully dark, but pretty dark. That one too, actually. I even want the gemstone to be a little darker as contrast goes. Cool. I'm not sure gemstone is even what that is, but there's something there, and so we'll play with it. And again, these are just rough. We'll come back and refine all of this in the later part. Let's see. We can even go a hair darker with these. Gives us a lot of contrast because I actually do want to draw attention to these. I think they're neat. I want to draw less attention to the back pants and boots and stuff. Whoops. That's too open an area. I'll have to actually close that one. That's fine. I'm not going to worry too much about them. We'll just keep that a very plain value. We'll deal with shadows and such at the end. We'll probably do a separate layer for those, because it's a value question too, but less of an important one. Now, big question here, as far as the character. Do we want this outfit to be leaning darker or leaning lighter? Pardon me. Because we can go either way. We can have this try to be a fairly deep green. Or we can try to make the pants darker to contrast a much lighter green. Now, remembering that we're basing this on the mineral Olivine, because that's her name, because I name all my characters after rocks. And minerals, of course, for people who care about that distinction. Olivine is not terribly dark. I mean, it can be, but like it's generally pretty light, pretty bright. It's fun. Gemstone form is Peridot, if you're familiar, or Peridot, if you want to pronounce it that way. Apparently, Olivine's also the name of a character from some game. I've got no idea. I'm not the only person who names people after rocks and minerals, apparently. I won't dig into that too much. However, I think this gives us a good idea that maybe instead of having light pants, we want to go with darker pants. We can even go fairly dark, although I think I want to keep this more mid-range. Ay. Zoop. And again, we'll get actual shadows and lighting and stuff in a little bit, but it's not the immediate priority. It's so funny, the sections that end up getting lit and filled together. Alright, because I want the baseline for this outfit to be much lighter. Leaning in the light way. I don't necessarily want crazy high contrast across this. I mean, we could always have... I can put the values below the sketch, actually. That'll be a lot clearer to read. There we go. Let's see, we'll do that. We can always make the gold sections here even, like, a little bit brighter. And this is going to limit our option for like reflections and such, because it's already pretty much at max. Like, we'd have to go even, like, we'd probably have to go like full on titanium white, like full, is that full zeros or full F? I think that's full F on the hex code. Which we can do. It opens up our options a little bit. We're not limiting ourselves quite as aggressively as we did during the Millennia. Alright, we can go with a slightly darker belt, or we can go with a slightly lighter belt. But it'd have to be really light, again. Which, again, if we're trying to draw attention to the gold accents, we can certainly do. But since I think we're not, let's go with a darker one. We'll have it be the sort of that muted, kind of mustardy gold. That's fine. I don't know what I just did, but everything, like, smoothed out. It startled me. We can go a little darker for this, too. Again, it's not like a major focal point. Doesn't need to be a lot of contrast, just a little bit. That's technically shadow, but whatever. Okay, for this section here, because that's technically a different material. I know we hid the front view sketch, but it's kind of like two separate pieces. Now, do we want to make this, to contrast it, do we want to make it lighter or much darker? I think we go with the slightly darker. I won't contrast the chainmail so much, but it really draws attention to this flashy part of the outfit, which is kind of what we want. Okay. And once again, I may even do the same with this sleeve as well. That'll sort of be our main. We've got like the middle gray, and then we've got a brighter gray to really draw attention to the outfit, and then really, really bold down here. This will also be consistent, sort of the gold decor, so I think that'll be good. Okay. Now for the headpiece. This is another one where I'm actually going to aim for the really bold white. Because we moved our color palette in that direction already, I want to go for that really, really bright going on there. And to contrast that, which will contrast more, we'll go with this same slightly darker gold tone. Now we've got two options for this little section here, and it depends on what we want to do. If we want to make this smooth and not so high in contrast, we can make it, you know, a nice little like easing. Or if we want to make more contrast, we make it dark. Like really bold. High detail and then none. Now, this does bring an interesting question of what we actually want to do with this. Do we want it to match this so that it sort of ties in? Or do we want to actually make this piece darker? And then we've sort of got this, so there'll still be high contrast because we're still skipping out on this middle tone that we could use. But it means that this whole section, whoops, I knew that was going to happen. It took a second for it to load, and I was like, I hit the wrong thing. But we can have this as a sort of like go-to for the brightness here. Or, honestly, we can even have this be really bright and just sort of blend in with the headpiece and just be like a nice little accent. It'll be a different hue, it'll be a different color, but the value will be the same. And that way, this would be able to be the same consistent gold as the rest. It wouldn't pop as much, which we could do. But I think we want to draw attention to this. It's an interesting part of the character design, and it's around the face, which is where we want to draw attention. So I'm going to vote high contrast. May even vote that really high contrast where this isn't, whoops, like this matches into here, and then we just have the really dark there. Okay. Thinking about over here, probably could have cleaned that up, but whatever. Okay. This isn't an important detail, so I'm just going to make it roughly the same. It'll blend in. Shading will make the difference there. Okay, the shield. Once again, we've got our shield. Now, couple options with that. I think the most obvious choice is to sort of make it match the leggings, give it a very paladin-y look, keep this sort of neutral gold tone that we've had going elsewhere. Inside will be darker, of course, once in shadow, but that's, you know, is what it is. And that's one option. But the shield is, well, it's eventually going to be an important part of the character design, even if it's not in this particular pose. So do we want to actually go for the darker to really, really make it pop? Because that will make it show a lot more. Ties it more into the legs, as opposed to the outfit. It'll contrast the outfit more to, yeah, okay. Now that I'm saying that, the shield's in most views, where's the shield going to be? Blocking the body. So if it's overlapping it and it's the same colors there, then that's not great. So we could try with this more middle gray. And it'll still have the contrast of the really bright part, but the edges are going to blur in, as you can sort of see they're already doing. I mean, and even making this arm darker won't actually solve that. So yeah, let's not. Now face tone. So yeah, darker for the shield. And yeah, we'll clean up all the weird artifacting and stuff. I do see it. But we're trying to block in general shapes right now. Oh, and I never did fix that. Oh, well. That's the time trials. There will always be... I'd love to at some point go back and do like tweaks and improvements on these designs. But I think the better choice would be to just move on and make new drawings. So we've got more character drawings. Because the whole point of this is really the design phase. Let's see. Oh, hey, thank you. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, sorry, I'm sort of trying to go through the logic of it while we're doing it. And I'll admit, I'm a little out of it today, so if I start to ramble too much, give me a shout. But we're happy to have you. Welcome aboard. What brings you floating through the streamiverse? Let's see. Do matching sleeves. We've also got kind of a leather thing happening over here. Yeah, I think everyone does. I mean, that's part of the zone. It allows you to zone out any distractions. It's just unfortunately your brain registers chat as distractions. Yo, hello! Well, what brings all of y'all over here? Here I was getting all in the zone on these time trials. Greetings everyone. Well, howdy. Thank you, Dyer. I appreciate it. And Saxter. I'm not sure we've met in all of the wide expanse that is Twitch. Well, hello, everyone. Hello, Rolo Bear. Hello, Rise Capri, I believe. Hair to Joseph. I like that one. It's Connor HD, Aiden 09863884, and Traycorn Loves Pizza. Wow, just a whole crew. Evan Myers. Hannah 2280. We've got followers coming in faster than I can even catch it. Chaos Drexes and Pro 1099. Wow, quite the crew. Well, thank y'all. Well, I appreciate the support. But yeah, no, it's going well. We've been doing time trials, so this is... Hey! Happy to. I try to get pronunciations right. Yeah, so this is an original character. Okay, so what we're doing here, just to give a little bit of context, we're doing timed character design. So we go through and get a couple character concepts before we do the timer. But then we go through and we basically say, okay, we take these concepts, we've been going 4 hours total to go from like design, posing, sketch, getting our values in, which is what we're doing now, and you can see the timer at the top where we've got some time left on that. And then we'll get colors in by the end. We're starting to get a little faster at it though, so we may have to cut that timer down. It does mean everything's unfinished. This is Olivine, because my character's named after stinking minerals, because I'm a geology nerd. Friend of Salt, and a few others. Who's going to be more of a stubborn paladin-y type. We'll get into some of the background in a little bit. But so we're messing with poses, we're messing with trying to come up with designs. Does this look like a Fortnite shield? I'll admit, I don't have a ton of Fortnite experience. I grew up more on the Minecraft side of things, and then by the time Fortnite was big, I was in college and had no time. A tragedy. But if it does, that's kind of neat. No, I was just messing with things. Yeah, no, so all these... I'd love to make like a full story, but writing is definitely the weaker part. Yeah, writing's definitely the weaker side of things, but we'll get there. You know, I run D&D campaigns, so it's definitely more of a fast and loose kind of writing and collaborative storytelling thing. Olivine and some of these others are NPCs in those campaigns. We can dig out... Oh, jeepers, I haven't drawn Salt in ages, so the old one's really bad. But yeah, so challenge with this is I'm trying to... She's supposed to be a girl, and I'm not doing a good job with the face. We did some more tweaks to it today, and we'll have to do more tweaks in future drawings, but the, you know, timer has moved on, and so we have to too. We can always refine in the future. Let's see. Thanks, Chaos. Yeah, it's coming together a little better than I expected, actually. I'm quite happy with this funky headpiece. D&D's always a blast. Ooh. Oh, yeah, voice acting. Well, we'll see. My crew is crazy enough that I'm not even sure I could prepare to know which NPCs are going to do what, but it might be a fun opportunity. We'll just have to get a little further along in the process. Face cam, no, I'm looking at stuff to maybe do more of a VTubers type thing for Sifamir, which is my actual sort of, obviously that's not my real name. Yeah, feel free to jump on the Discord. It's not super active right now, but we got stream announcements and places to share any art if you've done it. Feel free on that. We're always happy to have more people contributing, more people just showing their stuff off, because it's, you know, it's fun to share art with people. Yeah, it does look kind of like a bonnet. It's kind of ended up that way. Let's see. Yeah, oh, 17 plus years. Well, dang, you've got plenty of time on me. I really only started drawing, like, seriously during the pandemic, because I had time for the first time in my life. Let's see, Discord, there should be a link. I've got a website that's got links to sync and everything, sifstreams.com, I believe it is. Let me click on that link so I don't link y'all in the stinking wrong place, because that'd be embarrassing. Okay, yeah, that was not the right one. Okay, Sif Streams, not the start page. Well, dang it, okay, I've got to go on my own Twitch channel to find it. Oh, you got it? Okay, cool. Yeah, let me get the link properly. I don't want to leave y'all hanging on that. It should be linked to my links, sifamir.com. Duh, okay, yeah. There we go. So for anyone still interested, there's sifamir.com. We got a little bit of everything. I'm still updating the socials and figuring out the right balance of social media, because as much as I love sharing art and engaging with people, I'm so bad at social media. I'm so bad at it. They all just make me so stressed. So it's something I'm trying to get better at. Twitch, at least you can, like, talk to people and have, it's a kind of a one-way conversation, but still a conversation. It's not just little, like, bite-sized snips. But yeah, no, we started really drawing in 2020 and trying to practice people. I, you know, dabbled with it and done fun stuff. And there's an old Tumblr blog from, like, 2014, which will never be shared, ever. With a different name. Oh yeah, no, definitely. Like, IO games are fun. But yeah, oh, Rise, yeah, oh cool, your daughter does things like this with animals. Yeah, I'd love to do more critters and things too. Like, there's so many design options, so many things to do out there, you know? There's never enough time in the day. What I really love, I love geometric and architectural designs, but it's a little difficult to really do story with just those. And so, you know, I'm trying to practice drawing people too. Whoops. But as you can see from my pause stream, we've actually dabbled a bit in... Digital art is my weakest medium. I prefer, like, wild stuff like cross-stitch or paper crafting or 3D modeling even to an extent, as you can see here. But, you know, we've done some fun stuff. Yeah, thanks for dropping by, Evan. Appreciate it. Thank y'all all for dropping by. This has been a huge surprise. You know, y'all are actually our first raid. We've never had one before. I filled the background again in my excitement. Oh yeah, stinking Blender. It's a wonderful tool, but you really have to, like, warm up in it. It's not one that's easy to just pick up and put down. And truthfully, I've had a little bit of proper training on 3D modeling with Maya, but, like, Blender's its own beast. It's so great. It's so awesome once you're in the zone with it. Oh, dang, 3 a.m. Are you over in, like... Oh, wow, y'all are on the other side of the pond, as it were. Happy to have you drop by, but get some sleep. You gotta take care of yourself. We actually, what you might be interested in is I do... Oh, crud, I'd have to do the time conversion. This is my late evening stream here, but I do an early morning one as well that might fit your time zones better. On Sundays, I have an 8 a.m. stream my time, which is exactly 12 hours earlier than this one. Well, 13 hours earlier than now. So, whatever your time zone, I try to keep stuff around. Yeah, the pond. Yeah, just to hop across the pond. The pond that's, you know, 3/4 of the planet. It's fine. 12 p.m. for you, 10 p.m. Yeah, it's, let's see. It's about 9 o'clock here, actually. 9 in the afternoon, evening. Yeah. Okay, well, 12 p.m. Yeah. Whatever time it may be. But hopefully it's a little easier. But, wow, we got a crew from all over. Well, that's always fun. Let's see. Man, I'm so glad I streamed today. I almost didn't. I was like, today's been like a crazy day. I've unfortunately, or fortunately, I've got like the proper day job and they've been painting, so everything's out of sorts. But yeah, thank y'all for dropping by. I appreciate it. And we'll get this posted on the Discord and everything. We also occasionally do, like, we were doing Passepartout, we do Gartic Phone and group art things occasionally, so like definitely drop in. Always happy to have people hanging out. Yeah, Dyer, that'd be great. I'm gonna have to check out your stream sometime too. Oh yeah, Gartic Phone. It's always a disaster and always worth it. I love that game. I could play that game every day, but I would not get better at anything. Gaming and art, yeah, awesome. I think we're probably in similar boats then. I'm majority art, but sometimes we have days where it's just like, let's do something different. We've done a little Elden Ring, we've done a lot of Stardew Valley. Odds and ends, we've been playing some Passepartout recently, Trombone Champ, kind of all over the place. Let's see, we've been using the fill tool. I don't think that's going to work for this. Stardew, oh man, Stardew's a dangerous one. Don't get into it unless you got the time to spare. Oh hey, Scopic, welcome! You've crashed a raid. Happy to have you in here too, though. Scopic's been following forever, amongst other things. Always happy to have you here. Again, here I am. I'm like off my game now because I'm just sort of like got the jitters. We've never done this before. Thank y'all for raiding. I don't know how y'all found my little random stream out of all of them out there, but we're certainly happy to have y'all by. Let's see. So where did we leave off? Zoopadoopadoo. Okay. Yeah, obviously we're just doing block fills in right now because we're figuring out our values and contrasts here. Very quick recap on value. We want high contrast areas where we want to draw attention, low contrast areas where we don't. Oh, hey. Oh, that's awesome. That's a cool concept. I'd love to do something like that once I'm a little bigger and have enough people that I can actually share around. Daily raids, oh, that's so cool. I'll have to get involved too. I'll drop in on some of those and go find some people to follow. Yeah, let's see. Okay. So where we left off on value, I'm going to get a bigger brush while we start to clean some of this up. Because we're just throwing them down right now, figuring out where we want to draw the focus. But the recap, high contrast draws focused, low contrast doesn't draw as much. So we want high contrast on some of these interesting boot designs that we're going to work on. This will be brighter, which will sort of define the overall character color because it's the bulk here. But it's not going to be nearly so, like, not going to draw as much focus as the face. Now the shield I normally wouldn't want to draw crazy focus to, except it's a defense-oriented character. You know what we could do? We could make the middle ever so slightly less bright. That way we still have the high contrast edge whenever it's visible in front of the character. And so it'd be clearly defined there. But we still don't have quite as much eye draw as we do to the face or like the really distinctive pieces. Okay, yeah. Spear point also want the high contrast, of course. That's, an action moment. We won't go quite as maximum on there, but we'll get pretty good. You know what I took in college? I took history. With a minor in a thing called creative computation that was mostly programming. And also 3 other minors, because I'm indecisive as all get out. Or as I like to put it, a jack of all trades. But, that's the fun thing is, yeah. It means that I get to apply different ideas. I mean, my job doesn't have anything to do with any of those. So, like, I love getting to do new and different things and explore stuff. Oh yeah, I'm a history buff. Well, unless you get too recent. If it's happened later than like the 1800s, I really don't know much about it. Oh, psychology's a good one. Psychology's useful for whatever you end up doing. Being able to sort of put yourself in someone else's shoes and try to understand how people think it's great. Like, no matter what job you do, that will make it easier to communicate. And no matter what job you do, communication is probably the most important part of it. Because if you're doing the most important work in the world and you can't communicate about it, no one will listen and it'll get ignored. On the flip side, if you're doing the most boring thing in the world but you can talk about it, you can actually get people excited. It's really fun. History's fun too. I loved history. I don't regret it at all. Because even though I was never much of a writing person, still not the biggest on it, but again, it's that ability to sort of try to figure out where people are coming from, try to be able to learn how to understand how other people think. It's awesome. Oh, mental health is perfect. That's great. That's really good. That's really good. Oh, Scopic, you want my stinking old Ea Nasir references? I can't believe that meme has been sweeping the stinking internet. That is so dated. Oh, but yeah, if y'all want fun history facts, I am more than happy to share. Like stinging Pythagoras. I think most people know Pythagoras from the theorem and not from his vegan cult. And I do mean cult because that was the old term, like, proto-religions that they were dealing with in, like, ancient Greece. We're talking, like, pre-Socrates and Aristotle stuff. Oh, fun times. Because Pythagoras' cult, well, there were a lot of things, and I can't get into the full details on all of it. Sorry, Scopic, you activated History Nerd. You're getting at least 5 minutes of history nonsense before we can move on. But yes, before even ye Elden times, Pythagoras had a cult with a lot of beliefs about early proto-beliefs about spirituality and the idea that all living things had spirit. I don't think it was even limited to living, but especially beans and various plants. And so they were very opposed to harming anything like beans. Specifically beans because it's relevant for the story later, but all sorts of different plants and legumes and different things. What this meant in practice, however, was that, and I don't remember which belief it was, but he had some more extreme beliefs that eventually got him booted out of a city, or more specifically got a very angry armed mob chasing after him. Now, don't ask me, maybe it's because he invented math. I would understand people getting mad about that. He didn't invent math, but he did invent his theorem, which is actually pretty handy if you're messing with triangles. But I understand people not being happy. But he made him so mad that they came after him with torches and pitchforks. And, you know, he had the opportunity to get away. He could have cut across a bean field, like straight across. And he would have gotten to the other side and probably would have been fine. But he didn't, because he didn't want to hurt the beans. So he went around it. He took the long way. He took the two shorter sides, and the mob caught him, and that's ultimately how he died. But you'd really think if anyone on Earth would know that taking the hypotenuse instead of going around the edges is shorter, it should have been stinking Pythagoras, right? Sorry, that's my nerd fact of the day. What do I use? I use OBS. I think it's... Oh, Sting, I don't mess with it enough. Is it Streamlabs or Stream Elements? One of the two. But yeah. So yeah, there's your fact for the day. Next time someone brings up the Pythagorean theorem, know that he died sticking to his principles and not to his actual theorem. I respect it. But let's see. Yeah, share the tablet screen to the computer. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, my tablet doesn't have a screen. This is all just in CSP, Clip Studio Paint. Yeah, I mean, you know, honestly, I respect the heck out of someone being that committed to it. Oh, jeepers, I am all off of my actual colors. Let's get some of these going. And we can have these... I don't necessarily want these to be high contrast even with the pattern, so I'm going to leave them as is, and we'll just change the hue. Oh, Procreate's so good, though. Like, as far as tablet software is concerned, Procreate's probably, like, the best. I need to mess with Metabang. I haven't messed with that one yet. Let's see. I used Krita for a long time, and I really like Krita. There's really just one thing that it didn't do as well, and that was dealing with vectors and vector layers, which is where I wanted to be doing a lot of work, because it makes it a lot easier. So that's why I switched to CSP, but, like, Krita's awesome. And free. Yeah, Scopic, don't even get me started on the medieval papacy. Fascinating. Ibis Paint. I don't think I know that one. there's so many awesome art tools out there these days. It's a really great time to be like actually like a beginner in art. Like obviously there's all the AI issues and like will you be able to compete with that, but if you're just like trying to learn art for the fun of it and like learn this skill, like it's actually, the tools out there are so much more available than usual. Thank you, Insider White 1022. Appreciate the follow. Now that I can actually keep up with the follows again. Sorry if I missed anyone in the earlier hubbub. And John Mouse, hey, thank you as well. Okay, we'll keep cleaning up our values here, and then we'll get into some shadows in the last, I don't know, 15 minutes. I don't think we're gonna do anything crazy with the lighting on this one, so we won't return much. If we ever do like a full like illustration of this character of Olivine, we probably won't be doing it in a very short time trial format, and so we'll have time to really get fun with some of the shading and such. And to build an actual crest, because that's conveniently not visible right now. Not on purpose, it just worked out. But yeah, thank y'all for the follows, thank y'all for jumping on. This is really fun having people here. It's always, you know, as much as there is something to be said for just like the quiet listening to music and sort of like doing art in peace and narrating to yourself because you're still streaming even if no one's there, like it's really just a lot more fun when there's actually people around, you know, because you can share the experience and share ideas. Or nerd out on history facts. Hopefully not enough to drive people crazy. But look, let's just say I could monologue to myself thanks to history facts for a long time before I learned how to monologue to myself doing art. Oh, more history facts. Oh, how about heckin'... we've already done ancient Greece with Pythagoras. We'll save Alcibiades for another day. What are some other fun ones? There's so many crazy moments. Oh, how about a more recent one? Fall of the Berlin Wall. Did you know that wasn't on purpose? I mean, they were going to open the border a little bit. Oh, I mean, yeah, the sub the South built was a fascinating disaster, but really, for the U.S. South anyway. But oh man, the fall of the Berlin Wall, stinking wonderful. So, we're talking like late 1980s here. So not that long ago, but pretty old by standards of, you know, Twitch streamers. Ooh, that's a way too big of an eraser. And so we're looking, East Germany's having a rough time of it. Like, Gorbachev's pretty popular, he's getting some ideas, but the East German government's, it's a little rough. The economy's not doing great, and there's increasingly challenges with being able to travel across the border. You know, there are various reasons for that. We won't get into the whole cause and development of the Berlin Wall. Lots going on there. Basically, the premise was to keep people in the East because they didn't want professionals moving away. You know, you do you. I can't dismiss all of history with you do you, but I'm trying not to get too bogged down in it because this is one of those things that's recent enough that people still have very strong feelings about it, and I don't want to start a political argument in the comments in case anyone here is still personally invested. I've got my opinions, but I'm also happy to hear others. But we're talking about the actual incident that led to it falling. So, fall of the Berlin Wall. We're 1989. You know, they've realized in the East that the border's going to open at some point. Gorbachev's policies are moving in that direction, and more importantly, which country was it? It's killing me, because after Yugoslavia fell apart. I don't know exactly which one, but basically a country on a southern part of the Iron Curtain had already opened their borders. So, like, the deadlock between the East and West was opening up a bit. Generally, probably a good thing. But if you're East Germany, it's really embarrassing because a whole bunch of East Germans drove out of your country to cross the border there. So many so that it became infamous that the East German built Trabi, which is a very fun car. There were just like traffic jams of it all the way to the other country. So it was a bad look. They realized, okay, people are going to go across regardless. We may as well allow some travel visas. Now, their plan here, this was a panic plan. This wasn't like a calm and collected, you know, okay, we're going to do travel visas. This was an, crud, people are leaving. We need to make it look like this was the plan the whole time and regulate it a little bit so that people don't just bail. Understandable, you know, that's sort of the position they were in. So the leaders in East Germany go to get together and they say, okay, we've got a plan. We're going to issue travel visas We'll figure out the exact details on how to qualify for those at a later date. Don't worry about it. But they went and told the person who made the announcements in the evening. I forget the exact name. It wasn't like press secretary, but basically the press secretary. And they're like, hey, you need to announce to people that there's going to be open travel through the border. And the way they did this was they just gave him like a 2-page front and back sheet of printed paper. Now, this sheet of printed paper had no details, and this is a big announcement. So, they go on to the radio, for the record, the West and East German radio, but especially this was being aimed at the West, and they're announcing that we're going to open some travel with visas. And a reporter there asks, okay, when? And the poor guy looking at his desk, he's just been given this note. This is probably a surprise to him that this was the decision they made. So he flips through it absent-mindedly for a little bit, and he's like, well, now I guess. That was probably the wrong thing to say, because that was not what they had intended. But they didn't write down a time, so now it is. What this meant was that no one at the border was informed that the border was opening, because that wasn't the plan. So these poor border guards, well, I don't say poor border guards, they shot people who tried to cross. That's not cool. But these border guards are sitting there. They're just doing their normal things, same night as any other. They're not listening to the radio on this. However, everyone living near the wall on the eastern side was. And so they immediately get swarmed by a crowd that's saying, like, hey, let us across, the gates are open. And these poor guards are just staring at them. And can you just imagine, like, you're doing the same job you've done for, like, 10 years, there's been no changes, and then, like, thousands of people show up and are like, hey, they said the gate's open it. Yeah, most of the guards were like, okay, we've got 2 options. Either we take the Tiananmen Square approach, which had been done in the past, and the East German leaders had recently brought in consultants from the same people who had implemented that massacre as, like, to try to see what would be applicable for controlling the border issues. They ultimately didn't go with that plan, but it was on people's minds. And so they're like, okay, are we going to try to stop this crowd? There's like 5 of us and there's 1,000 of them. And this was at 3 different checkpoints. Or are we going to just say, to heck with it, let the crazy people go, and then close the door behind them so that all of the sane, loyal people will stay? They took the second option. That gate never closed again. They opened it. Immediately there was reveling in the streets. West Germany had a policy, because they were trying to get people over. They were trying to attract people from East Germany. So they had a policy that if you got to the West, however you got there, A, you had instant citizenship, because it was a separate country at that time. We're talking the DDR, the Deutsche Demokratische Republik, was the East, and the BRD, the Bundesrepublik Deutschland, was the West, separate countries. West Germany basically said, hey, if you get over here, instant citizenship, as much as you want it, and we'll give you some Deutschmarks. This was before the Euros. We'll give you some currency just right off the bat. And so the East Germans went over, and they basically, the West Germans were like excited to have them back, and the East Germans were excited to be over. So they basically threw the world's biggest block party for like 3 nights and just had a massive street celebration. They literally, people took sledgehammers to the wall, like just immediately. None of it was intentional. None of it was the plan. The wall wasn't supposed to come down at all. But the East German government was like, well, I mean, I guess this is where we're at. And then the East German government kind of, collapsed within the next 2 years. But that wasn't directly because of the wall. There were other things going on that led to that. But yeah, complete accident. One press conference where they forgot to add the note on when they're supposed to announce it. Next thing you know, the entire border's collapsed. Funny how little things like that happen. And I would say by and large, obviously, whether or not that's worked out is still anyone's complaint. West Germany has its ups, and it's just Germany now. There's certainly ups and downs to different political systems and economic systems, and if you happen to get the short end of the stick, it's understandable to have a little bit of nostalgia for the old ways, or ostalgie, as they call it. Nostalgia for the East. But it's where we're at. I mean, yeah, you can use a sledgehammer. Whether or not you should is a different question. It's not that, it's not that I don't trust you with a sledgehammer, but it's real easy to hit your own shin with those if you don't know what you're doing. Please be careful. Don't go knocking down nearby border walls on a whim. It rarely works out as well as it did in the 1980s. And by rarely, I mean stinking almost never. Historically, that's a stinking bizarre anomaly, and it's very funny to me how it went. But yeah, no, I mean... But of course, I also realize full well that I'm an American, and while I try to study these events from a more German perspective, as opposed to just looking on as an American, yeah, everyone's got different areas, and even different people within Germany will have different opinions on how all that went down. So I'm always happy to hear different perspectives. That's sort of the way history works. It's, like it or not, there's a lot of different viewpoints on it, and even the simplest of events are going to get interpreted in very different ways. It's part of the fun. Also part of the chaos when people intentionally interpret it badly to allow themselves to commit crimes, but mostly it's part of the fun. That is yeah. Like the vegan cult. I don't think that there's any way to interpret Pythagoras' vegan cult in a useful way in modern society, but it's a fun fact. And who knows, maybe someone will restart it. Maybe someone already has. Pythagoreanism is a philosophy. We still have some of it written down. If you want to learn more, you're welcome to. Let's see. But yeah, no, history, that's the fun thing about history, is everyone always complains that history keeps changing, or that it's getting, or there's like, oh, historical revisionism or different things, and like, well, yes, to an extent, as we discover more things, we discover more artifacts, we translate more things, we get more opinions, yeah, our understanding of events changes. Of course it does. We don't have just, like, history didn't just get given to us, like, here's exactly what happened in an unbiased account. That's not ever how that works. Even some of our best early historical texts are full of bias. The trick is learning where the bias is and learning to work around it. That's what makes it exciting. And learning where your own biases lie, because it's really easy to miss those until you actually, like, think about them and examine them. And I think it's worth learning where they are. It's always helpful to know where your own biases are. Let's see. Do we go with that, or do we just keep it mostly skin tone and do a different hue? I think we just do a different hue there. I think that'll be fine. We've got our ribbons here. We could give the ribbons a little bit of contrast. Like, nothing crazy, but we can add a little color in here. That'll be fun. Although it's actually less contrast with some of the other stuff. Funny how that works. Okay. Now, I do think that we want this to be... Well, what did we go with for the boot? Oh, we went with really dark metal for the boot. Well, we could do the same thing over here, because we got kind of a leather gauntlet that doesn't read very well from this angle, I'll admit. But something we can start with. Oh, right now I'm just making this character. Actually, real answer... the answer I'd give is just for fun and practice, but the honest answer is, are y'all familiar with Art Fight? It's really stinking fun. It's this game where you basically have your OCs, you have your original characters, or whatever characters you want, but you know, it's theoretically original ones. And every year, I think it's in June or July, everyone on the Art Fight site gets divided into 2 teams. Or randomly, or you can swap. They aren't worried that much about swapping. It's big enough that a few people swapping doesn't mess with the balance. And what you do is, the goal is to earn points by quote-unquote attacking the other team, but the way you do an attack is you do fan art of one of their characters. And so, it's basically a contest where everyone's doing fan art of each other's characters, and it's really fun. It's a great way to get fan art of your characters and to get practice drawing other people's characters that you may not have seen, or get ideas and inspiration. It encourages you to practice quickly and do iterative stuff, which I think is always worth doing. Oh, it's super cool. It's free to do too. It's just a big old site. It's in a couple months is when the next one is. And so I want to make sure... Oh yeah, I'm always excited to spread the word on Art Fight. It is so much fun. July 1st? Okay, July... Okay, then it's the whole month of July, because it's not just one day. It's a long haul. Now, you know, there's no real pressure. Like, you know, teams win or lose. There's so many people on there. It's... You know, if you end up burning out on it, there's no pressure, no guilt or anything like that. But it's just a fun way to meet random people, see new characters, test out different designs and art styles. I really enjoy it. And like... I don't know, so I want to make sure, because right now I really only have one character on there, and that's a very old... I need to redo the character sheet for Salt, too. Salt is a really old D&D NPC I have. Another mineral. To an extent. Okay, we're starting to get... the bottom leg. Here we go. Let's do some cleanup down here. I knew there was something I'd missed. And then we'll get to shading. But yeah, so I've got one character sheet up there, but I'd really like to have a few more options, just to give people options to work with, and because it's fun. But what that means is I need to do a lot of full-on character designs, which have been sort of like maybe loose concepts in my head, if even that, for a while, but never got designed, and I'm trying to see, okay, let's see if we can't do that efficiently. Also, once I design them, I can use them in my D&D campaigns, or in webcomics, or whatever other art ideas they are, but even though I've been doing art for a long time, I really don't have all that many original characters, and so it's something I've been wanting to try out. I say long time. Like, you know, a couple years. I've not even been streaming for a full year. We're still fairly new to the scene on that front. Oops. Let's see. I'm okay with these sort of badly aliased edges right now. Again, this isn't like what I would think of as... if we were doing a final piece, obviously I would be trying to go for a lot more precision and detail and make it real nice, but these are, as much as anything else, practice. And so part of that quality is not getting too caught up on any one detail. That's what the timer helps with. Okay, so we've got that. We've got the details there. Did we get this boot? Yeah. This is still kind of badly aliased. I can do like a little bit of cleanup down here. The aliasing's not terrible, but it's, you know, we can tweak it better. Whoops. There we go. July 1st. Okay. Man, that's coming up. I realize it's only May, but that's, you know, less than 2 months away, and I've got conventions to go to between then and now. So I'm not going to be able to do this 24/7 in prep. I gotta figure out cosplay stuff too. Oh, dag dab. So much to do. Okay. There we go. We've got this design. I'm actually really liking how the legs turned out. I like the fabric bunching. I like the metal motion. Oh, let me clear up a little here, though. Face can use work. Obviously, it still doesn't read very well. Fabric folds. This part's natural. This part's a little off. But, you know, obviously this isn't a straight line, but it was never really meant to be. And the shield's a little wonky and simple. But that's the thing, you know? I acknowledge these so that I can improve on them next time. Let's, there we go. There we go. I think that's the last of that sort of detail. I'm not going to worry about that. It's more of a straight line. Truthfully, same with this. Save that. And then, let's see what we're dealing with. Right, we were going to do one more layer. We got 12 minutes, 1, 2, 3, 4 actually on the timer. That's always fun. Let us call this shading, because we're going to do a very solid type of shading here. We're not going to go smooth and nice and graceful gradients. I want to just like actually use this limited value palette so that it'll really pop. Step one, though, is where's the light coming from? Do we want the light coming from the front? I mean, that's sort of the default. They're charging into the action. It's exciting. But with this shield, it'll actually cast some really weird shadows. So I almost feel like we kind of want the light coming more from, like, top left of our perspective. Like it's a little bit above, not top left, top right. Like above and behind our right shoulder as the viewer. Which would mean that we'd have some interesting shadows cast down, but we'd also have fairly well lit up here. So that's what I'm going to try to aim to do. Means we'll just have some, like, background shadows just loosely around edges. Oh, and I can also make this a clipping layer. That'll be nice. That's the fun part of the shading, is I don't have to worry nearly so much about the lines. We'll just get a little shadow going in there. This whole ribbon will get a little more. I'm not even doing like this as a shading layer. I know we could do a multiply, but that ends up getting a lot more colors going in the gradient, and that's not necessarily what I actually want. We're trying to stick to a very simplified color palette style right now. In a final piece, of course, you know, I might want to do a little more variation. But this ain't no final piece. Whoa, that feels like I forget how much, there's like a real jump in this grayscale palette. I need to tweak that a little bit. That's fine. It just means that we'll go easy on the shadows with some of this. And of course the inner shadow on this. Oh, give that a little depth, even if it doesn't contrast super well with the face itself. It's going to blur into the eyebrow. We'll have to be careful with that. A little bit. Right, nope. Shadow's going to be bolder around the nose. I need to do some more shadow studies. It's been way too long since I've done anything proper on that. I'm not sure I've ever done it on stream, so all the more reason. If we're lit from this, this actually won't have too much shadow on the eye area, so I'll leave that plain for now. I can get like a little more shadow going on the visor. I like this visor. If I do say so myself, anyway. Okay, let's see. 9 minutes. Face was the most important thing for shadows, though. Everything else is a little more filler. If we got light coming from this way, most of the shadow cast from this is actually going to be obscured. We might just get, like, a little bit going on in here. Thank you, yeah, you know. There's always room to improve. Like, every artist has trouble finding that balance between, like, I like my art and I think it's awesome, and I hate my art. It never turns out the way I want it to in my head. I try to find a decent balance between, like, critiquing stuff that I can work on improving. I don't always nail it. I don't think anyone ever does, but yeah, I try to, because, you know, the way I think about that stuff is, and this may be job talk ruining my brain, but I'd like to think if it's actionable for anything. Like, if I have a complaint and it's not actionable, if I can't actually take an action to improve it, then there's really no point in me thinking about it, because all I can do is fret. If I can't, and I mean, an action can be anything. It can be me working to improve it. It can be me talking to someone else about what needs to be improved. It can be me encouraging involvement, you know, anything in life. But if you can't actually do anything about it, if it's just like a world away, then fretting about it, even if it's something important, fretting about it is useless. And you're just going to stress yourself out until you can't actually act on things that are important. So, both with art complaints and with just everyday life stresses, that's sort of my motto. If I can't take action on it, then I won't do anything about it. But if I can take action on it, then I should. And so that's how I try to look at this art critique. It's like, what are things that I can look at? Like shadow studies, that's something that I can practice and improve a little more. It's not bad, but it can get better. Like whatever the heck's happening there. We can do a little inner ear shadow. We won't do much. That's really not much, but that's fine. I mean, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. It's, you know, it's not that easy to control your emotions after all. But when I find myself utterly overwhelmed in life, that's sort of how I like to think about it. Is like, can I actually do something about this? If yes, then do it, or at least figure out how you want to do it. Figure out what you ought to do next. If no, then even if it's something important, even if it's something tragic, like I can't afford to think about. Nope, that's the right layer. Am I on the eraser? I'm on the eraser. Always sneaks up on me, that one. Okay. Yeah, but you know, if you can do something, do it. If you can't do something, focus on what you can do. It's, I don't know. It helps me not get overwhelmed by the massive information that's on the internet. Because there's always something happening. Let's see, so that is that color. Good. This is just really harsh contrast. Oh well. A little more shadow going on in there, not so much. That's the other thing. If I talk a lot about how I think on stream, I think a lot of people do, truthfully. So I apologize if I ever get too rambly about that too, but I think it's interesting, and I love to hear how other people think about things. It's part of that whole history study. It comes up a lot in psychology too. Understanding how other people think it's helpful for a lot of different reasons. Let's see. So that plane shouldn't be this dark, but we're going with a limited shading palette, so it is now. let's see, we can do a little bit of accent shading. 5 minutes 46. I can't afford to spend too long on this. We can give this, since this piece is, this whole arm doesn't read well in this angle. We've got another sketch which the posing and proportions were really awful, but the design was good, so we tried to take the best elements from that and work it into this one. But that arm unfortunately just wasn't able to show through super well. Okay, there we go. Rather than 50 lines, let's just do like 1 or 2. Try to keep them sharp. And imply a little bit of curvature to it. I like that. Cool, there we go. Yeah, also, if I get rambling too much about how I think I do, just give me a shout. I think, you know, we all get in the zone. Part of the fun of the whole art thing. Ah, jeepers. These are supposed to be tassels, so this is definitely not the right shading texture, but that's okay. Now that part ought to be darker. We'll leave that dark. Oh, but it could be like this instead. I'm gonna sharpen the edges on this a little bit. Wish this eraser wasn't quite so pixely. Okay, that'll do for that. I'm not gonna go crazy on this. In fact, I'm actually going to, heaven forbid, I'm gonna use a straight line tool, but maybe not on a 1 pixel width. Just enough. That it'll do for this little rough sketch. I can do a little erasing around the edges to make it a little smoother, but that saves me a lot of very difficult long strokes. I'm still on the vector eraser. That's really not what we need here. Let's do the snap eraser. Whoop, nope. Too big. Let's do the rough eraser on a decent size. There we go. That'll help with some of those especially pixely erased edges. Okay. We go back to the pen. Get a little more around where this is happening. A little bit more from the hand as well. We'll keep up with the shadow though. Maybe we even at this angle just taper it off entirely. That's fine. Got the orb. Always fun to whoops, that was like 3 different wrong hotkeys. Always fun to shade orbs. There's so much going on with those. On this one, let's see, if our light source is above it, it's actually going to be bolder on the bottom than it is on the top. And I'm not even going to worry about the shadow that Ollie would be casting, because we ain't got the time. Okay, not going to worry too much there. We might, because again, this particular angle of shadow is interesting, because it actually doesn't give us too many shadows we need to do, and certainly not in the normal creases where I would expect to be doing them. Alright, this one could be almost entirely in shadow. Down here, of course, definitely would be, but it's going to get blurred into the pants leg. Chainmail's already dark. We can, like, sort of have a shadow that follows that a little bit. I'm sure that next stream I'm going to want to do a little more shadow cleanup and spend some more time on this. And that's fine. Because we got 1 minute 40 seconds left, and that's just not quite enough for everything that I want to do. But it's plenty to do some interesting things. There we go. Smoother edge there. Erase that. This won't have too much in the way of shadow. I mean, what it has would just be like a little bit along the edge there, which won't even really show up all that much. Now this, obviously lots of shadow happening here. That's where I'd want to spend more time. Because, you know, we've got the shadow that this thing's going to cast, which is going to then be translated somewhat awkwardly over the wrinkles. We've got this metal bit, which is going to have shadows coming out down here. and which itself might actually have just like a little bit of a glint. Let's see, 44 seconds. Let's see how far we can get at 44 seconds. This is where the time trials always come in crunch. Not clutch, just crunch. Let's see. We can imply there's like a little bit of depth from those. We could add a little depth from this one, but I think that's going to be too much, honestly. Just keep it very, very thin, very faint. That'll do. Okay, that's gonna, whoops. I mean, that little niche is gonna be almost entirely in shadow. That's gonna have some shadows going on underneath it. Obviously, this whole thing is going to be casting shadow to some extent. But that is our timer. So, I'm gonna just do a little bit of cheatsy finishing up the leg. And I think that's where we're gonna have to leave it for today, even with these period accurate, horrible shoes. Not that the shoes are drawn badly, they just seem like they'd be awful. Yeah, sorry. Sorry for the train whistle. I needed something that would snap me out of the zone, you know? I've had other timers where I just keep on drawing through it because I just don't hear it. I realize I'm doing that as we speak, but it's intentional. I mean, it gets your attention, don't it? Alright, we'll start with that. Like, see, that makes that leg so much snappier. I want to do that with this leg, too. You know, I may fudge it a little bit since we've had a lot of chats and stuff. Let's go ahead and just finish up this other leg. That'll be our limit for today. I think that's a reasonable concession. Again, the timer, as much as it's a hard stop, it's also designed to make the artwork better. And so if there's like little tweaks and stuff that can be done easily, then I don't mind going past it. Although I try to stick to it truly. Shadows on this won't be quite as extreme as they were on the other leg. And we probably won't even be able to see the shadow that this thing's casting. Except for down here a little bit. Let's see. We could get a little shadow in that, but I don't know that it's super critical, honestly. Just like a little bit to imply that there's a rounded edge at the bottom. And let's see. Light source top that direction. We've got this going. Trying to make this match this curve. Even have it come down a little bit there. It'll do. Again, I try not to do too much post-timer. And then we'll get this last one here, and that will really be our last line. We're only like 2 or 3 minutes over. That's fine. There we go. Snappy legs. We could probably make these a little more dramatic to match this leg, but I like the contrast. Rats. Okay, last thing, I promised. I know we talked about the glint on the metal, and I actually think that's something that I want to maintain. I'm still on eraser mode, aren't I? And I'm definitely not going to remember it for next time. So we'll get that little glint. There we go. Okay. Fix that shadow. Now we're done. And I promise, pens down, no more tweaks. No more tweaks for this one. Which leaves us, let's see, shading for an hour. So looking at our total, we got 1.25, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5. We got half an hour left for the colors. We'll see. We'll see on that. I don't know if that we're actually going to do that this stream. We're probably going to have to wrap this one up just a little bit on the next stream. Maybe we'll do a bonus one. Unfortunately, I do have a hard stop in about 20 minutes. As much as I'd love to stream longer, and I do it on those Sunday streams that are at the other hour sometimes. But for these evening ones, alas, the stream does not exactly pay for itself. The day job, which I enjoy my day job, but it is still a day job, which means I have to wake up early. which means I have to go to bed at a halfway decent hour. Which means streams have to end pretty consistently. I can't go overtime too much. So what I want to do instead for these last few moments is let's mess with our color palette a little bit, shall we? Which means cracking open the Pinterest. That's right, Sif Streams has an official Pinterest. I wasn't planning on that when I started the channel. But I'm going to crack open our palette for Olivine. Which, by the way, if you haven't used the tool Coolers, it rocks. Great for generating palettes. Why am I so zoomed in on this? Oh, jeepers. Okay, there we go. So this was the palette we had been looking at. Now, I've experimented with it a little bit, just to, get a feel for it. And truth be told, it's got some rough patches. Especially because when I'm doing these palettes, since we do the shading using the value, I don't really need multiple actual colors in the palette that are shades of each other. So these two are really too close. What I want to do instead, going to Coolers, is lock in a couple of those colors that are real nice. We're not doing the cookies, sorry. And then we'll see if it can help us find a few that match it nice and neat. So it was I like this one, it's proper Olivine colored. And I like this dark gray, but I honestly may refresh the others. We kind of need a beige. We really need a good gold in this palette too, honestly. Or a silver. Gold or silver. So the two I really want to grab are 8AAA 7A. So let's just do that. 8AAA 7A. Love hex codes, they're so easy. 1B 2021. And our next one, which I'm going to do on this side, 1B 2021. So we're going to lock those two in as our set colors, and let's just see if it can help us find some that match. I like those, but they don't really fit Olivine. Oh, that slate grayish blue is actually not bad and works well with the sort of stone thing. Looking at the sketch. Oh, that might be a good one for our counter colors. Instead of a bold gold, we could have this kind of soft blue going on. It does. I mean, sticking all of these end up looking like flags. It's really funny. Let's keep the slate gray for now. Pop it over. Well, we'll keep it with the green. Can we get something that's more of a beigey tone? Pale dogwood's really beige. Bronze. Oh, rats! I accidentally hit space again. Undo. Okay. Let's keep bronze. And we'll just toss that one for now. So, this would be an interesting flag for a country. Probably too muted for the excitement of patriotism. Everybody wants those bold ones for the flags. Okay, looking at this, I think bronze is going to be too bright of an orange. But I kind of like, we've got, apparently it's asparagus. I'd have called it like jade or something. Or olivine. We've got that color for a lot of these softer greens. We'll probably we may even do just like a full-on white for this piece. This blue would be a nice contrast for the green. Like, not too bold, but enough. It might work for this piece here, too. We'd still need a good pants color. Although, actually, the really dark black is kind of working. As opposed to a beigey tone, which I'd originally imagined. Interesting. We've got some options with this. That said, let's add one more. Ooh, butterscotch. Let's open up the bronze. Let's see what else we can grab in here. Lilac and tea rose, lovely. Engineering orange. Looks like the Golden Gate Bridge a little bit. Persian red and peach. Let's see. Also trying to think, none of these are great skin tones, and I always forget to grab skin tones. I've done it like 3 times now, it's embarrassing. Let's see. Alright, we're kind of cycling through the same ideas. Oh, buff's kind of not a bad skin tone. This is ending up being a fairly muted palette, but I'm okay with that. And then we could just like grab a white or an off-white for our 5th one. So that's something that we could work with, I think, and it wouldn't be too bad. Well, that was faster than I thought. That only took like 2 minutes. I'm gonna export it. Yeah, not that. Export image Olivine 2, and we'll chuck that on the Pinterest at some point. I can show you sort of our Pinterest idea board for Olivine. I've got stinking a ton of random stuff on here. Let's see if it'll load. Come on, Pinterest, buddy old pal. Oh yeah, Scopic, don't delay your schoolwork for streams. I love having you here, but like, go do your finals, mate. You gotta do those. Well, I hope this was a good brain break, and I hope that you're well and ready for it. I'm sure you are. Yeah. No, both in Dungeons and Dragons and in streaming, school always has to be a priority. Like, you know, I get it. I absolutely get it. Have a good one. Let's see. Oh yeah, Dungeons and Dragons a blast. Our campaign is stinking. I've learned a lot about myself through our Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And not like esoteric, like personality stuff. Well, I guess to an extent. But not like, oh, I'm secretly like a melee fighter at heart or whatever. But I mean, like, I always think of myself as a very organized person. I like to keep everything in place. You notice that I name and folder my layers a lot. I even keep the hour tracking. I like stuff orderly. However, every time I tried to dungeon master like that, I burned myself the heck out immediately, because I was trying to organize an entire stinking world in my head, along with people and their personalities and everything. For context of how much I overthought this. Yeah, secretly a melee player at heart. But I overthought it so much, I tried to start a campaign in a binary star system and calculate the day-night cycle. So I didn't even get down to the level of the continents, like, let alone something relevant to the story. Way overthought it. So I tried a campaign where I was much more loosey-goosey. I got like one source book with some fun ideas, and then I just kind of ran with it and played off what the players did, and it's been so much more fun. Prep time is more manageable. I can prepare enough that there's always something to do, but I don't have to prepare like stinking measurement systems. As much as I love that depth, and I love seeing that depth in worlds, I don't have the time and energy to build it. So I'll build it as it's relevant. And it's made the world more interesting, because I've planned it all out in advance. A lot of stuff would have been generic, because I would have been like, just do whatever's normal. Do whatever's basic, you know? Like, same old, same old. But now, when you're sort of building it live, you can sort of jump off of inspiration, jump off of ideas from the players, or whims you have, like, 6 months into the campaign. And, like, it keeps things more lively and interesting, I find. I don't think this is ever going to load. Pinterest is having a moment. Okay, fine. Yeah, secretly a melee player. I'm not gonna lie, I've had a lot of fun with my halberd character. Do love me a good halberd. I always thought of myself as more of a wizard magic type. Yeah, Scopic here likes to find the most, like, ridiculous combinations to create builds to vex the DM. Thanks, Scopic. I'm sure. But it's fun. It's fun. I am all for silly nonsense builds, or really cleverly thought out builds. All of the above. Whatever you want to do. The hardest part with Dungeons & Dragons is just making sure everyone playing is kind of on the same page. Because if the game is flexible enough, you need to make sure that everyone's kind of going in with the same humor. Or the same, like, idea of how the game's going to be. I remember an old Pathfinder campaign I played in, and DM'd a little bit because we did a rotating Dungeon Master, or I guess a Game Master for Pathfinder. But our party composition was super bad, because we had about half the party was Pathfinder pros, did all the research, they loved the game, they watched the podcast, read the books, they could make the most optimized, silly, nonsense characters, which led to our infamous, we're not the first ones to do it, but it was certainly a nightmare, our infamous bear monk, which unarmed damage, because it's a bear, did like 5d8 worth of damage. It wasn't exactly that. It was like 2d4, a d6, a d8, and a d12 or some nonsense. But the point is, unarmed attack. That was it. He could also snatch like ballista bolts out of the air just as a free action. It was madness. And on the flip side, we had brand new players who'd never played it before and were just having fun. And so we had our poor, it wasn't Alchemist. It was, maybe it was Alchemist. I want to say it was more of a Tinkerer type role. But it'd take like 2 turns to construct their weapon, and then it did an average of 1d4. So, you know, an average of 2 to 3 damage as opposed to an average of about 50. It was very hard to come up with situations that were fun for both of those players. And as long as they got along, it was fine, but it made the game balance rather complicated. That doesn't even get me started on the player who could fly from level 1. The player who was literally the main character from The Witcher. And then my stinking ranger, who was very fun but also an idiot. And absolutely drove our rogue mad. Dungeons & Dragons is fun. It leads to fun times. I highly recommend it. That it depends on the group. It definitely depends a lot on the group. It can be fun or it can be horrible. Let's see. Why don't I... While we're here, while we got some new people, why don't I show you... Oh, not the Boblin, the Goblin. We're not even getting into that. Let's jump into some old stuff. Okay, I can show you the art piece that took me an entire month. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Elden Ring. I know it has swept the internet, but that doesn't mean everyone's played it. There's still people who haven't seen Star Wars, so, you know. But it's got a character named Melania, who is very cool, and also full of death. I suppose both literally and in the sense that she kills the players constantly. Notorious enemy. But this was based on an existing, like, screen cap from the trailer, but we did a long Melania illustration that was a lot of fun. And was where I sort of have worked out my current art process workflow. Was really happy with how this one turned out. It was a lot of fun. But it was the same sort of, we do the values first, and then we mess with the hue and saturation later, and that way we can get a lot better control of, like, our actual colors and lighting and shading. Thank you, Dyer. I know I'm showing off art, but I appreciate it. It's fun. I tell you, I think I spent more time on the stinking fur texture than anything else, and then I ended up just going with the super, like, the original, just, like, this is basically just scribbles that just follow the path of the lighting and shadow, and it worked so much better than any other actual attempts to draw fur. Cracked me up. I was like, well, I guess that's how we do it. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's fun, but this literally took me, I think, like, 26 hours of stream time. It was an entire month of streams. So this was definitely not our 4-hour speed run. I basically did this first, figured out a bunch of techniques, and now I'm trying to get better at them by practicing repeatedly. But yeah, it was fun. Melania is a fun character. Let's see. I don't know that I've got anything else. I mean, this was just another one of those quick sketches. This was a mess. We were messing with intense perspective, but I don't think it worked. Based on a random historical device. I don't know. We've done a lot of stuff over the nearly year I've been streaming now. I look forward to Swordtember or Swordtober or whichever month it is. That one's fun. That one's a lot of quick art pieces. Another drawing challenge. It's just a sword a day. I wonder if I have some of those. Okay, these are my title cards. Okay, let me... I've only got like 4 or 5 more minutes on the stream, and then I'll try to find someone that we can raid. So I was just going to do like 2 minutes of just showing off some old stuff, so y'all can get an idea of what we've done on here. Just because it's been a long time since we recapped stuff anyway, so I may as well sort of run through some of this. Let's see. Let's look at the title cards. I post all this stuff to YouTube, all the recordings. So we've got everything from... Oh, jeepers. Like, we've got some of the old Swordtember stuff. Like this. Did I mention... not a single one of my Swordtember weapons was remotely usable. This is stinking honeycomb. You can't fight stuff with this. But it was fun. All the way onward to... like 3D modeling when we were working with the Ishtar Gate, another historical art item, I guess building. Y'all saw that one on my pause screen. Some different tests. This one was kind of interesting. I don't know, we've done a lot of stuff. Oh, and then, of course, the latest, the latest unfinished project not sure I even have. Yeah, I don't even have a title card of it. We've still got one in progress that's for Mikola, another Elden Ring character. And that's my other motive for doing these, like Olivine, is face practice. Because this still looks a little bit like a Chad face, not gonna lie. Like, I need to practice faces more. And so that's what I'm trying to focus on. Because once I can get a little better at faces, then I can finish that Mikola piece, and that's gonna be fun. But it's still very much in progress. Oh, jeepers. Was it this one? No, that was an old versions. There we go. Like you can see, we're still just outlining it, but it's definitely stuck at the face phase. Once we get the face, then we can do some actual inking and line work and have some fun with this. Hopefully it'll be another one more detailed like Melania, but we'll see. Okay. Well, I think that's enough of me showing off for the night, I say as I nonchalantly switch back to Melania. Why don't I see if I can't find a fun place for us to raid? I'll keep y'all on your journey. Assuming I can remember how to raid, because I'm always really bad at it. Let's see who we got. Okay. Well, there's always the stop sign cam, but that doesn't really seem like it's in the spirit of thing. How about Teary Brush? That's an artist I met at a convention one time. She's really good. I don't know what she's working on currently. Last I saw, she was doing some Genshin Impact stuff. Let's see if we can't do a raid over there. And I need some ideas for a raid message, by the way. I don't have much in the way of that. It's been a while since we've been able to do a raid. Let's see. No, not my channel. Oh dear. Creator dashboard. Zoopadoopadoo. Thanks, Twitch, for informing me that I'm live. I did, in fact, notice. Okay. Raids. Where is it? Stream Manager. Here we go, I think. Raid channel. Let's do Teary Brush. Okay. Let me see. Y'all had the great... I like the Saxter raid. That's a good one. Sif streams, we've always had kind of an archery theme, if you hadn't noticed from the top left of our overlay. I don't know if, like, shooting your way would be potentially too aggressive. Sif Stream sends his regards would also have Game of Thrones implications and be entirely too formal. How about this? We always sign on with Howdys and Salutations. Because that's the mix of my medieval history background and me being American. So how about that? We'll do a Howdys and Salutations raid. Let's see if we can't throw something like that in chat. Let's see. Bit of silliness, but it's always fun. Oh, rats. I don't know. We can do that. And then we'll just do that a bunch of times. How about this? How's that work for a raid message if y'all want to copy and paste that? And then we will head on over that away. Thank y'all for coming out. It's been an absolute blast. I'm so happy to have y'all here. I'm definitely going to check out some of y'all's streams and jump more on a few more of the things that y'all are doing. Always fun to see other artists on here. And with that, I hope y'all have an excellent morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day or night it may be. I hope it's a good one for you. So, let me stop recording so we don't chuck this in the YouTube video by accident, and we'll head out.